second half presenters. First up, we have Peter Belmonte, who is a retired Air Force officer, and thank you for your service, an historian and author. He holds a master's degree in history from California State University, and he's published 8 books on military history. Peter Belmonte.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Again, thanks Dominic, thanks Anna and Francesco there, and CASA ITALIA. Saving our stories. I love the idea, and as a military historian, that's what I've been trying to do. I started with World War II. Most of us know probably veterans of World War II, Italian-American veterans. Then I moved on to World War I, and I've slung a lot of ink over there, as you can see, of trying to document World War I, a little bit on Italian-Americans in the Civil War, and now the Spanish-American War era, as you can see there. This is what really got me started in focusing on the Spanish-American War. The young man in the middle is my my very distant connection to the war. It's my great-grandfather's cousin. There he is in Chicago, 1904, seated between his parents. He was in the 3rd Cavalry Regiment. Thanks to my cousin Lori Swaney for sending me that. I have to send it back sometime. Okay, Italian-Americans in the U.S. Navy, 1898 to 1902. I've so far documented about 255 men so far, immigrants and a few that are sons of immigrants. About 130 were musicians, which is unusual. Well, it's different, it's an interesting statistic, and I hope this will be somewhat entertaining, but here we go. So early on, as I was researching Italian-Americans in the Navy at that time, I came across this photograph in the Library of Congress website. And if you can read the caption, it says, Musicanti della Banda, Mayflower, San Juan, Puerto Rico, 3 February 1901. Obviously, that's written in Italian. It says musicians of the band for the Mayflower. And I thought, well, that's interesting. At least 1 or 2 of those guys must have been Italian. Well, that's interesting. But, okay, you know, I couldn't, it wasn't identified. I didn't know anything about it. As I started going along, I found information in pension applications. So I've identified through this 9 of these 10 men. Well, let me go on with that. I'll show you here. First of all, that's the Mayflower. It was a yacht built for Ogden Goulet, a wealthy American. The Navy purchased the ship in March 1898, just before the Spanish-American War, anticipating the need for adding more vessels and things like that. And what they did was they armed that thing with 2 5-inch guns, 12 to 6-inch 6-pounder guns. She participated in the blockade of Cuba during the war in 1898. Then afterwards, she became the headquarters for American Governor General Charles Allen. He was the first American Governor General of Puerto Rico right after the Spanish-American War. So as I was going along, there they are. There's the band members. 9 of the 10 I've identified. That's their age and where they're from. Can anybody guess where my family comes from?
Oh, I was wondering why that one was big.
Oh, here's my family. Oh, how'd that get there? So if you look, Settimo, he's also called Settimo Boccaccio, 51. So that's probably right. He's probably the oldest guy in that picture. So I'm assuming to play a position of authority. So I'm guessing the dad is Settimo Boccaccio, bandmaster. He was born in Palermo in 1849. He served as a musician in the U.S. Navy from 1885 to his death in 1903. February 10th, 1903, he was aboard the USS Solis off of Guam. He jumped overboard and committed suicide. The report states, the man jumped overboard with suicidal intent at the time above stated. He had spoken of doing so the day before and was under restraint the evening of the 9th instant. And the morning of the 10th, he was released as he appeared perfectly normal, and he acted and talked in that manner until the time he jumped overboard. They were able to get him on board, and they couldn't resuscitate him. His widow and later daughter tried to get a pension, and they tried for many years afterwards, and all the paperwork, I could not find where they were successful. It was all declined because it was not a service-connected, they determined whether a service-connected disability. So that's one man who I think I have positively identified. This is Antonio Caruso, a picture taken in about 1895, as you can see in New York City. I think he's the next guy I have identified. He was born in Palermo in 1872. He enlisted in the Navy in 1900. He was discharged for disability 2 years later. And his disability application package runs to more than 400 pages. So that's how I got all these names, because they were affidavits of people that served with him on the Mayflower. And this is a pathetic nature of some of the, I use the word pathetic in a technical sense, of some of the efforts of these men, not only Italians, but others, to try to get a pension. Here's a letter in 1908 he wrote to Honorable Theodore Roosevelt, President of the U.S. I am by trade a musician, and because of the rupture, he was suffering from a rupture, I'm not able to work anymore, and $8 are not enough to keep a roof over my head, and for the last 6 years, I've been fighting for an increase, but to no result. All my appeals have been rejected. May I hope your honor will take an interest in this matter, as I am poor and destitute, and have no other trade that I can perform, and I am really starving with no resources. So that's him there. There are two photographs taken of him. One on the left there is, I'm sure, in his Navy uniform. Those were taken in San Juan in 1901, contemporaneous with the photograph before. So if you look at that, I'm pretty sure that's a match. I would think so. And right behind there is the shaking hands. That's the Locascio, the band leader, the bandmaster. So that's where he was in the photograph. So I'm pretty sure that's a match. Caruso died, sorry to be a downer, Caruso died of accidental asphyxiation, illuminating gas, found dead in his room on January 2nd, 1925. Was it accidental? That's open to speculation too, probably. He had tried and tried. He got a little increase in the amount of pension. They were able to get sometimes some increases in the pension. This is interesting. This is another one of them, Gaspare Lau. He was born in Palermo, as you see there. This is his Royal Navy service information. He enlisted in the Royal Navy in 1892, served in the British Royal Navy, and then came to the United States and served in the U.S. Navy, including aboard the USS Mayflower. Okay, this is the second band, a constant source of pleasure, the Italian-American Band of the 42nd U.S. Volunteer Infantry Regiment. So these U.S. Volunteer Infantry Regiments were recruited in 1899 specifically for service in the Philippines, because the state volunteer units were coming up on their expiration of service, so they had to fill in. So they recruited at large, U.S. at large, these, and there was 25 of the regiments. They all went to Philippines during the, we used to be called the Philippine Insurrection, now it's Philippine-American War. So this was unusual in that there was 20-something members, and there's a picture, most of them were born in Italy. So that's a picture of them near Manila in 1901. Pretty good looking band. The band was recruited mostly by chief musician, Calabria. Chief musician Saverio Simone. 13 of these guys lived in New York City's Little Italy, the Mulberry Bend that we read about a lot. Right in that area, addresses in that area. Baxter Street, Catherine, Christie, Elizabeth, Hester, Mott, Mulberry, those streets. So 13 of them. And what happened was Saverio Simone, who had prior service in the Navy and the Army, recruited these men. These were all professional musicians. So most of them were in this small area, and he recruited them, signed them up. So I forget what is that, like 17 men. There's the non-Italian members. I don't want to be exclusive. There were non-Italian members of that. Even the cook, Fred or Neff. Give them their. Say, they're broken down just by way of analysis. Campania, a lot of area around Naples. And a lot of these men studied and were professional musicians, and they came to the United States. And there you see how the recency of immigration. And this is all the best I could determine using the census record, 1900 census record, which was taken while they were actually in the Philippines. Age, nothing unusual there. Age in 1899 when they enlisted. Nothing unusual because, right, the young man's game really kind of doing this thing. Able to speak English, again, taking this from that 1900 census, so for what it's worth. You can see that 5, 11 either were a citizen at the time or became citizens afterwards. And there's some that were unknown that I didn't know, wasn't able to track down. You can see 12 tried to get pensions and were able to get pensions. It's very common, a lot of pensions, and service in the Philippines can be very arduous with the climate and bullets. Subsequent service, there you can see. A couple of them, let's see, Zangare retired, the bottom guy there. Oh, my goodness. I think Martone retired, made a career. So they came, they did their tour in 1899, 1902, 1901, and some of them re-enlisted and tried to make a career of it. So they were marketing their skills as musicians and serving the country at the same time there. Okay, there's the chief musician. He's the one who did the recruiting. He was born in San Salvatore Telesino, Benevento, Campania in 1874. He had pre-war service in the Navy as a musician and in the Army so in the 1890s in the U.S. Army as a musician. He committed suicide also by illuminating gas in 1935. One other band member committed suicide, Virgilio Sana, shot himself in 1910. So I don't quote this as some, it's sad, it's very sad, and you wonder, say 3 or 4 men and a small sample size, so what does that mean? Is it an unusual sample size? Did it happen to be? Was it a function of the military service? Was it a function of trying to get, they were trying to get a pension? Was it a function of the immigration versus, who knows? But I just think it's an interesting statistic that. This is just a picture of one of the men because I had it, Joseph Albano, about 1920. So he told an interesting story in the regimental history of he managed to convince, when it was their turn for guard duty, in the band had to guard the barracks in Manila, or the outskirts of Manila, and he managed to convince 2 or 3 of them that there was an imminent attack, by the insurgents. And at least one of them said, I want to fire out the window. I don't want to go on the top. And another one said, well, I'm a musician. I'm not a soldier. And then, of course, Simone and the other guys set them straight. They were indeed U.S. soldiers. And yes, you can use this gun, but there's another one again just because I had a picture. Not a great picture, but there we go. This is interesting. This is a pension application card for principal musician Vincenzo Gentiluomo. And as you can see there at the top, the name is often spelt with an N, Gentiluomo. If you're going to have a difficult Italian surname, I think Gentiluomo is a pretty decent one to have. But he was able to get he died in 1900, before they even got to the Philippines. So he perished there in San Francisco while they were waiting to go. His widow did get a pension, and here I like this too because this shows U.S. government accounting. That's his widow, Antonina Condina Gentiluomo, and it's saying as late as 1909. He died in 1900, so 1910. You better read this here. What it says down there: recover at the rate of $12 per month from 12 February 1904 to 3 June 1904 inclusive. Erroneously paid after date of remarriage, $44.80. So years later, they came back and got the money out of Antonino.
$12?
Yeah. So
$44?
yeah, they want to get account. It's got to balance. This is one of the men that was in there, Frank Zangari, with his wife. About the time of World War I. So he got out of the Army, he went right into the Navy after that. Then he served a brief stint in the National Guard, and he went back in the Navy. And he served a whole career in the Navy. There's his band, Portsmouth Naval Base, Portsmouth, New Hampshire, during the time of World War I. He's in the middle there with the drumsticks and that's September 12th, 1918. And really, that's it. That's all I had. I hope it was been some of interest, because it's not something we think most of us know or knew World War II veterans, and we probably are aware, okay, there's some World War I. But when you go past that, before that, really is to be aware that Italian Americans did serve during that time. So I hope this was entertaining for you. Yes?
Peter, very quick question.
Oh, yeah.
I'm just curious. So they're band members, how much of the day is devoted to the band? How much is devoted to?
Most is to the band. So a lot of the times they didn't have these duties. They didn't have kitchen police or other duties because they had to. And this particular band, the Army band, that second one I was talking about, by all accounts, was very decent. They were all professional musicians before they went in. They were all, they played concerts. They would pray for the commanding officers. If somebody else visited, they play for that. So most of their duty was that. Somebody else, yeah.
One of the slides back, one man went from the Army to the Navy.
Yeah.
Okay, is that common to go from one branch to another?
Yeah, some of these.
Was it back then? Or?
Some of these, more so back then, I would think, and
Really?
some of these musicians that I've been finding, even before in the 1890s, mostly Italian immigrants, what I'm looking at, they would do that, and they would kind of cobble together a career, that way.
Oh, okay.
Dominic?
Can you verify anything or an interpretation that I've developed independently? And that is, Italians are more musical because each town in Italy has a band, a municipal band.
I don't know.
And they are in competition with the town 5 miles away. And the leader of the band wants to win the competition, so they give free lessons to kids who seem to have some talent. And so there's an abundance of opportunity to learn band instruments, how to play band instruments in Italy because of that municipal band tradition and the competition with the nearby and far communities. They always want to say,
I hadn't heard that, but that sounds very plausible, and I know that in some of these cases, some of these men actually attended these, I'm sorry I don't have the men or the schools they attended, these musical academies in Naples and Palermo. And I know, I've spoken many times even before the Civil War and during that era, Italian men would enlist in the U.S. Navy at the ship when it docked in Messina or Palermo or Naples. So you'd have Italian sailors would enlist as musicians and then either come back to America or get discharged there after the tour and disappear back into the population.
yeah, well, the original Marine band from the
Yes.
beginnings of the Republic
Yes.
was basically Italian. And was John Philip Sousa Italian?
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anyhow.
The original Marine band was Italian, and some of them were Sicilian, some of them were, I think most of them were recruited to Palermo and Messina. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I got a lot. Carla?
Well, no, just a quick one. So you did not need to be a U.S. citizen to enlist in the Navy then? I mean, if they were docking in Messina and bringing on Italian nationals, and they actually became official members of the U.S. Navy.
Yeah.
They played a good French horn.
Wow.
That's right. And so, now in the Army it was different. During this time,
Yeah.
you had to be a citizen, but I think maybe sometimes it looked the other way or what have you. But yes, they would recruit. Yes, sir.
At one time in the Chicago area, there were 17 municipal bands in the Chicago area in the heyday of immigration, which probably around the 30s, 20s, 30s. And now there's only 2 left: the Sicilian band and the Caliendo band.
Yeah. So that was something probably whose time came and went. That's it. Yes, sir.
I'm curious about something that you called it War Was a Great Adventure.
Yeah.
People, do they embrace imperialistic jingoism of the Spanish-American War and thereafter? And therefore legitimize as American citizens, or did they just join for a job?
I think you have a combination. It's kind of odd because I have that's the quote from a man that it didn't cover. Really, it's in the book. You gotta read it. But he's another Calabrese. He was another band leader, and he had come early on in the 1890s, and he was part of Admiral Sampson's fleet that was blockading Cuba, and he was on the USS New York. And when they were getting ready to sink the Merrimack, I don't know, getting into military history, they're gonna sink the Merrimack to block Santiago Harbor. They asked for volunteers, and he was one of the ones that volunteered, but he said everybody volunteered because that war was a great adventure. And that's where I got the quote from. And I think for most people, that was the outlook. That was kind of the American outlook. They're kind of the manifest destiny, why not, you know, yes, liberate the Cubans, help the poor Cubans, but also we're trying to expand, we want to expand this kind of thing.
Up to the Vietnam War, he served in the army close to as a result.
Yeah, in World War I, you didn't have to be a citizen. You had to be a citizen to be drafted, but a lot of guys waived that, maybe not knowing, you know, maybe they didn't know, and they were drafted and they became citizens at that time.
It was offered as a pathway to citizenship,
Yeah.
to serve in World War I.
You could do, yeah, and they indeed gave them short, you know, you didn't have to wait. Yes, sir.
Last question?
Other than like regal, musical, entertainment, marching, whatever, I mean, did they actually perform any service during engagement too? Like in the Civil War, the drummer boys were crucial to like communication and
Yeah.
signaling and things like that.
Not the bands like this. At this time, in the Army, they still had trumpeters in there, and they still relied on that, you know, to blow charge, to blow retreat, or what have you. But a band like this was not for that. But they did have, and they were Italian. The Rough Riders, Teddy Roosevelt's famous Rough Riders, one of the trumpeters was Emilio Cassi, born in France, but his parents were from Italy. Just FYI.
Peter, thank you so much.
Thank you.